Hello, everyone. Thanks for tuning back in once again to the original Queen Ahmadiyyah Shakur show. I'm your host, Queen Ahmadiyyah Shakur, and this is your daily vitamins. So as you're coming in, please feel free to go ahead and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. Be sure to click the notification bell and click the word all so that you're notified each time Queen Goddess goes live. All right. So let's give everyone a few moments to get in here, and then we'll go ahead and get it started. Hold on, let me pull up another tab really quick. Everyone, please come in, give the video a like and a share. Make sure you subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. Click the notification bell and click the word all so that you're notified each time I go live. And also, don't forget to follow me on Instagram at Queen Ahmadiyyah Shakur and on Instagram at divine_goddess_26. Okay. Now let's get ready to get into it. Okay. Hello, Trisha, Latasha, Irma, Piggy's Picks, October, Karma. Aeon is in the house. All right. Okay, let's get started, people. Let me pull up these receipts. Okay, here we go. First and foremost, for those of you who don't know, hello, Chase Ryder, Joe, Pearly, Nakisha. For those of you who don't know, the Simpsons has predicted many things, and they actually predicted the tragic events that occurred at AstroWorld. Okay? Let me show you a picture of it really quick before we get into the story. Christopher said, Black media working late Friday night. Salute, Queen. Thank you, beloved. Trust me, I barely made it, honey. I barely made it. Okay, here we go. Now, as you can see, this was on The Simpsons, all right? They predicted the whole thing just like they do many other things. So I thought that was clearly nefarious, all right? Coincidence? I think not. So now let's get into it, because there was some news that came out about police officers actually, hold on, let me delete this real quick. About police officers actually pointing their phones toward the stage at Travis's performance for like nearly 15 minutes, when in fact, by this time, they'd already known that there was a disaster ensuing. So it says, footage from AstroWorld appears to show police officers pointing their phones at the stage at least 15 minutes after it was already declared a mass casualty event. Okay, so a police representative, hold on. Okay, footage seems to show police officers near the AstroWorld stage during the deadly crowd surge. The Houston Police Department declined to comment specifically on the video. Now, a police representative told Insider all footage will be looked at as part of the investigation. Photos and videos from the rapper Travis Scott's AstroWorld Festival in Houston, where at least 8 people died in a crowd surge, appeared to show members of the Houston Police Department near the stage for more than 15 minutes after the festival had already been declared a mass casualty event. So now that's all crazy. I'm going to show you all this video. Everyone, please get those likes up. Please like and share. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. Be sure to click the notification bell and click the word all. Here we go, people.
Let me caution people not to buy into the rumors, okay? Because there are a lot of rumors, but nothing is left off the table.
I'm honestly just devastated. I could never imagine anything like this just happening.
You know, it's supposed to be a good time, and this is not something you would expect be doing after going to a festival, going to a memorial for the people that died in those festivals.
And when we read these ages 14, 16, 21, 21, 23, 23, 27, just breaks your heart.
Okay. Excuse me, people. My laptop came unplugged. Okay, so I had to plug that back in. All right, so there you see that. The police were doing everything but their job, apparently, right? So that was crazy. Now, also, they say Travis is clearly in hiding. Travis Scott, holed up at home, claims he's giving the victims' families room to grieve. So Travis Scott has locked himself away in his Houston home, still devastated by the events that took place 1 week ago, according to his attorney. Well, I'm sure his attorney would like for us all to think that he's devastated. In my opinion, the only thing he's likely devastated about is the fact that he's been slammed and that he's been sued for all these millions of dollars. Clearly, when he was on stage, he didn't seem like he was too concerned because he kept right on performing. Now, Ed McPherson joined TMZ Live on Friday to talk about Travis and what happened at AstroWorld. While McPherson says there's still a lot of work to be done in the terms of the investigation, he remains adamant that Travis had no clue as to the dire circumstances. 8 people dead, and of 8 people being dead, and he just continued to perform. So he didn't know people were dead. He didn't know people were passing out, and there was people clearly injured. So why did he think some people were climbing up on the stage yelling, "Stop the show"? Why did he think the crowd was chanting, "Stop the show"? Why did he think all that was going on? Please make that make sense. McPherson tells us Travis is devastated, especially because the tragedy happened in his hometown of Houston, and he has not left his home there since. I bet he hasn't, because he doesn't want to face those reporters, the paparazzis, and he doesn't want to have to answer questions. That's what that is. That's why he's in the house, okay? Not because he's devastated because of what happened to those people. I doubt that very seriously. Now, Travis was supposed to perform in Vegas this weekend, a show he's since canceled, and a petition is growing online to stop his headline event at Coachella next spring. Ed says performing is the last thing on Travis's mind right now. He wants to give the families of the victims time to grieve and has set up an email account through his team for them to reach out to him when they're ready. He's promised to pay funeral costs for the 9 people who died as a result of the show. TMZ broke the story. Cops were seen casually watching and recording Travis's set 25 minutes after it was reportedly declared a mass casualty event. It's hard to imagine he knew the severity of what happened in the crowd if first responders were apparently oblivious as well. Okay, so because the police weren't doing their job, so that's his excuse, I guess. So anyway, that's neither here nor there as far as I'm concerned. Now they say the AstroWorld Festival spiraled out of control for hours, according to Houston's FD logs. This is what they show, and this was reported today. So I'm just going to read you I'm going to show you the video, and it says the signs of trouble were evident hours prior to the deadly crowd surge at the AstroWorld Music Festival 1 week ago, according to Houston Fire Department logs. Shortly after the 9 a.m. start of the November 5th festival, spectators had already breached the main gate, according to the handwritten logs obtained by CNN on Friday. Now, at least 8 more breaches would be reported throughout the day, with 3,000 to 5,000 concert goers who were not scanned entering the venue by 5:05 p.m., according to logs. A crowd surge at the popular event would eventually lead to 9 deaths, dozens of lawsuits, and a slew of still unanswered questions about what all went wrong. Now, let's watch this video. And then we're going to get into this stuff that happened at City College in New York when P. Diddy promoted this event with Heavy D, Dougie Fresh, and numerous other people. And this happened in December the 28th, I believe, of 1991. So we're going to talk about that and the comparisons of the similarities of these events. Mark says police were in on it. We all know they worship the devil. Do they mind? Oh, you all are a mess. Okay. All right, here we go.
Just to let you know, there is a cow in the audience.
There's a lot at stake. I made Pete promise that we would have fun.
This is the only chance you'll ever get to vote for a Maltese American left-handed Episcopalian gay war veteran, Mayor Melendez.
You're going to tell every gay kid in this country that it gets better.
In our national lead, a ninth victim, has died of injuries she suffered when the crowd rushed the stage at the Travis Scott concert in Houston last Friday. Let's go to CNN's Rosa Flores live for us in Houston. And this 22-year-old woman, Rosa, she had been on a respirator.
She's been fighting for her life, Jake. Her name is Bharti Shahani, as you mentioned, 22 years of age. She was a student at Texas A&M University, and that day she was at the concert with her sister and her cousin. Now her family is devastated. Her mom saying that she was selfless. She thought about everyone else before herself. Take a listen.
What happened now? What happened to my blessing now? I want my baby back, you know? I won't be able to live without her. It's like, it's impossible. You know what I'm saying? I'm empty here. How will I live without her? I want my baby back, please. Give me my baby back, please.
Her cousin, who was at the concert as well, blames producers, the venue, organizers.
It's just awful. And Rosa, the investigation has turned into something of an exercise in finger pointing about who should have been in charge of security and crowd control.
You know, let me paint the picture like this, Jake. So the Houston Police Department is the lead criminal investigation agency. The the Harris County judge is asking for an independent investigation. She's working to do that. Travis Scott's attorney is saying that all these officials are just finger pointing and sending inconsistent messaging. The police chief here in Houston saying that it's actually the production and entertainment teams who actually have the power to stop the show. But Jake, the police chief also said that there were more than 500 police officers that were at this venue, which begs the question, if you have all of these police officers there, did one of them think to perhaps raise this alert, the level outside of that production staff for safety reasons? That's the question that I asked the police chief yesterday during a press conference. And he says that he doesn't have an answer to that. He's not going there, but it raises serious questions, Jake, because HPD is the investigating agency. And so does this mean that HPD is investigating itself? Most likely so, which at the end of the day, you wonder why perhaps the Harris County judge is asking for an independent investigation. That's probably why too, Jake.
Well, that's definitely very sad. Judah Quinn says the 9-year-old is still in a coma. Yes, very unfortunate turn of events. Now, with that all being said, so now there are 9 people dead. Okay? Well, with the event that happened at City College in New York in 1991, there were also 9 people that died. At first, there were reports that there were 8 people, but eventually 9 people also died. So let's talk about that. And like I said, this event in 1991 was promoted by Diddy. Okay, New York officials began to untangle events that left 8 people crushed to death in Harlem. This was reported December 30th of 1991. Now, just days after the tragic event. Stunned elected leaders and police, medical, and city university officials began sweeping inquiries yesterday to try to explain a nightmarish stampede that left 8 young people trampled or crushed to death and 29 others injured at the doorway of City College Gymnasium Saturday night at a charity basketball game featuring rap stars. Now, the New Yorkers tried to absorb the fearful images of a crowd of pushing, shoving, rap fans, of victims victims trapped in a small stairwell, screaming, passing out, being crushed, while others sought autographs amid the carnage or laughed in their ignorance. They say people were just going crazy. This is what Charmaine Jones, age 20 at the time, of the Bronx said. She said they shoved and shoved and shoved. They were on top of me and I couldn't breathe. Now, the stampede occurred about 7 p.m. at Jeremiah T. Mahoney Hall on the City College campus at 138th Street and Convent Avenue. Witnesses said a crowd of thousands funneling into an already jammed gymnasium surged forward, pressing those ahead. Now, likely a deadly human wave, the pressure moved through the crowd, down a stairway and into a well before a single door opened for ticket holders. Now, they were out of sight of the mass of the humanity of the crowd. The victims were buried, crushed, and smothered to death. They say there were 3 people under me. This is what one person says. There were 3 people under me and 2 on top, says Kenan Gray, who was 20 years old at the time. I was stuck for 20 minutes. A girl was sitting up on my chest, says Lynette Delane, who was 18 years old at the time, from Patterson, New Jersey. She says, she wasn't even conscious. I just thank God that I'm still alive. No one even cared. They wouldn't stop pushing. Now, Mayor David N. Dinkins appointed a task force of top officials to investigate the incident, and the city university officials began a separate investigation. They say we have some of the same questions you have, Mr. Dinkins said at a news conference. He said several times that he understood the game was oversold, but he declined to assess the blame. He said, we're going to find out why it happened, how it happened, who's responsible if someone was derelict. Now, many facts surrounding that tragedy began to come into focus. Officials said, for example, that as many as 5,000 fans tried to get into the event that could handle no more than 2,700. The gate crashers may have sparked the stampede. That 66 police officers were there, but none were inside at the crucial moments. And that private security guards in the gym, even after recognizing there was a tragedy in the making, could not open more of the doors to relieve the pressure because the doors opened toward the crush. So they were trapped inside, people. Now, officials noted that the tragedy was so isolated in the stairwell that the basketball game was being played inside and confusion reigned on the landing above, and that hardly anyone knew it was even happening until it was all over. Officials and witnesses also said that emergency medical service workers did not arrive until a half an hour after the stampede, and by then they were mobbed trying to reach the victims. Lynn Shulman, an EMS spokeswoman, said the first call came around 7:17 p.m. They did not suggest the seriousness of what was happening, and it was not until 7:30 p.m. that it became apparent that it was a high priority incident. So they say witnesses in the meantime told of a crowd of teenagers and young people that degenerated into a mob of rowdy, tough-talking youths who cut lines and vowed to rush the doors as soon as they opened. The request to hold what was billed as the first annual Heavy D and Puff Daddy celebrity charity basketball game was made to City College officials on December the 1st by the evening student governments. The application did not specify the size of the expected audience, but school officials expected a sellout crowd for a gym that holds 2,700 people in its bleachers. About 1,500 tickets were sold by that Friday for $12 each. Now, the other 1,200 were sold at the door for $20. Handbill said the profits were to be donated to the AIDS Education Outreach Program. Now, the crowd began to gather outside the gymnasium on Convent Avenue about 3 p.m. Then by 5 p.m., when the first police contingent arrived, the crowd had swelled to thousands, and they were milling around and disorganized. The police department's chief of patrol, Mario A. Selvaggi, said. Now, the doors opened shortly after 5 p.m. 2 lines then formed, one for ticket holders and another for those who wanted to purchase their tickets inside. Many witnesses said, however, that hundreds of people without tickets began to cut into the lines, pushing and shoving, growing rowdier by the minutes. For more than an hour, as tensions mounted and occasional fights broke out, each line funneled through a separate entrance of double glass doors at the street level, then moved through a glass-walled lobby and down a 12-foot wide staircase to the basement level entrance to the gymnasium. On the basement landing was a row of 4 orange metal doors, each opening toward the incoming crowd, but only one door was left open, allowing first the ticket holders and then those who wanted to purchase their tickets to go through singly or in small groups. The game was supposed to start at 6 p.m., but it was already 7 p.m. when they approached. It had not yet begun, and the stands were almost filled to capacity. The lines had almost stopped moving, and witnesses said there were more than 2,000 people still outside waiting to get in when the game finally began. They say what touched off the stampede was still unclear at that point. Now the pressure moved like a wave of humanity through the crowd. A glass door in the lobby shattered as the wave squeezed through the mass of hot, sweating people in the lobby and down the jam-packed stairwell where the crush was the greatest. At the bottom of the stairs, people began to falter under the crush. Many in the bleachers were watching the game, which had begun, and they were oblivious to what was going on outside the door. Then an announcement came over the public address system. The game would be canceled. It said because 3 people had just died outside. So as you can see, that all sounds like the same scenario. But I'm going to play you a video of what they say occurred. Hold on just a moment. Let me pull this up. Everyone, please like and share, subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. Okay, here we go. Lights up, everyone. Please like and share. And I want you to pay attention to the language they use when they describe the events and the temperament of the
Stampeded hip-hop celebrity basketball game. It was on this date in 1991 that a hip-hop celebrity basketball game held in New York City turned violent, leaving a total of 9 casualties due to the event being oversold. Headlining the event was rap artist Heavy D, as well as quite a few other big names in the industry at that time such as Run DMC and Big Daddy Kane. Also, one of the organizers was none other than Sean Puff Daddy Combs, who was completely unknown at that point in his career. The gymnasium where the event was scheduled to be held only had a capacity of 2,730 people, and according to later reports given by Combs, they claimed to have only sold 2,150 tickets. However, on the night of the event, more than 3,000 people showed up claiming they had paid the $420 for admission. When the crowd was told that the venue was at capacity, they got extremely unruly and started to try and force their way in. This resulted in 9 victims being trampled to death and as many as 28 more severely injured. The justice system ended up placing 50% of the blame on both the promoters of the event, Puff Daddy and Heavy D, as well as the City University of New York, who owned the building.
Okay, now I'm going to show you a clip from a report that Geraldo Rivera did on the incident, and please pay attention to the language that Geraldo uses. All right, pay attention to the language that he uses and the questions that he asks the family members of the victims who perished in that event at City Hall or City College. Derek says, I remember that. Hold on. Derek says, I remember that because I graduated in 91. Okay. Mark says, so history repeating itself. Absolutely. And funny you should say that, because someone who spoke about another event that happened like this, they said, you know, now that this has happened, we know that history won't repeat itself, but clearly it has. All right. So let me share this other video. Everyone, please like and share, subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so, and make sure you follow the Queen on Instagram. QW Avil says end of the year and holiday rituals.
the feeling, and I've seen this expressed in the Associated Press and elsewhere, that the crowd itself became a beast that was consuming itself, bum rushing the door, crushing other youngsters without regard for the safety of the people in front.
True, but the promoters, they knew this would happen, or they knew it was a good chance something like this would have happened, and they supposed to took every precaution necessary to make sure if something did happen like this, they would be prepared for it, but they didn't.
Seen them dragging people in and pulling them to the side. I seen people, brothers and sisters, get together like I've never seen before. And I'm sorry for the families that suffered this, because I feel it more than I can possibly express it to you.
What about rap music itself? Do you think the music form is inherently kind of geared toward generating violence?
In a way, but it shouldn't be banned, because all you have to do is take the proper precautions to make sure things like this don't happen. You know how black kids going to act once they get together, and all these celebrities that's going to be there, they want to see them, they look up to them. So it's their responsibility to make sure that there's proper security there and these things don't happen, because there's a chance that something is going to happen. They know this.
You got to understand, America messed up. They flooded the hood with guns. So I don't know this notion of we don't have guns.
Do you think, and this is a very controversial point, I want you to really listen to my question very carefully. Do you think that black youngsters behave differently than white youngsters in a crowd?
No, I don't. I don't think they do. You put a bunch of white kids together, something's going to happen. But just that when they're white, you get more police protection. You get more everything. People take better care of them than they do us.
And so I feel the way we can stop us from getting to that point of violence.
Deputy Mayor's report for failing to adequately alert student organizers to the need for strong security and crowd control. Since then, Combs has maintained a low profile in the press, which he feels has wrongly portrayed him.
But who was responsible? Was it the music itself and these crowds that rap draws? Was it inadequate police protection, negligence by the college, fraud on the part of the promoters, a crowd that some say behaved like a beast, even robbing the dead?
This whole thing is set up, even at my level, you know what I'm saying? Even at the level of hip hop, you know, things are set up to try to stop us from growing and being as great as we want to be. So the same thing with Revolt. I had to go and really go to war with all of the distributors.
Okay, so there you heard it, people. Oh, I'm sorry. Let me go back, because there was one more person who was going to speak. Hold on, let me share the screen again. My apologies.
Him.
But who was responsible? Was it the music itself and these crowds that rap draws? Was it inadequate police protection, negligence by the college, fraud on the part of the promoters, a crowd that some say behaved like a beast, even robbing the dead?
This whole thing is set up, even at my level, you know what I'm saying? Even at the level of hip hop, you know, things are set up to try to stop us from growing and being as great as we want to be. So the same thing with Revolt. I had to go and really go to war with all of the distributors.
In this particular case, greed and gain were major issues in the loss of those 9 lives.
I'm coming out. What is?
Okay, so there you heard the man said it was greed. And that's absolutely what it is, and also wickedness, okay? Now, pay attention. He said, in the loss of those 9 lives. And as I told you, when I was reading from the article, they said there was 8 people dead, and then there was 9. The same case with the Astro Festival. There's 8 people initially dead, and now there is a 9th person, all right? So, yes, RG3 says, a rap villain fool. Puff, what a headline. They truly drew a lot more attention. Yes, that is what it always happens when it's black people. They called Puff Diddy. They called P. Diddy a fool. They said a rap villain. Who's to blame? A rap villain fool named Puff Daddy. That's what they said. And then pay attention to the words that Geraldo himself used. Now, this happened, mind you, people, this occurred December the 28th of 1991. Now, pay attention, because Geraldo said turned into a beast. He used the word beast. And then he said they had no regard. And then he said there was violence. And then he said black kids, do they behave the same as white kids in a crowd? And then he said, do you think that the music ensues violence? Well, some rap music does absolutely invoke violence, but so does heavy metal and rock music as well. Now, also, here's the thing. I like the way the person at the end answered his question when he asked, do you think black kids behave differently in a crowd than white kids? And the man said, no. He said, but they get more protection when they're white. This is absolutely true. But here's another thing that I also thought was interesting. You see, Geraldo took it upon himself to do an interview with the families of the victims in the City College event that happened in November of 1991. But what he didn't do was talk about what happened in November of 1991, you know, because there were some more people that died. And this was at an AC/DC concert. Now, why didn't he talk about that? And why didn't he ask those same questions to the white folk whose children died during that event? AstroWorld disaster sounds just like Salt Lake in 1991. 3 young people died during a crowd surge at an AC/DC concert at the Salt Palace. The story keeps repeating itself. It absolutely does. Because I'm going to tell you some more scenarios. And Geraldo didn't cover those, and he didn't say the same things on those either. And those also were at white concerts. There's one that was Who, where 11 people died. And we'll talk about that in a moment. So they say the details are eerily similar. The results so tragically alike. Have we learned nothing in all this time? No, they haven't learned anything, because here's the issue. If these things have happened numerous of times throughout history, you would think that they would know and have common sense to have better security and to have strategies and things set in place so where they wouldn't have these problems. But you know why they keep having these problems? If you ask me, it's because they want to. They don't care about the concern and safety of people. And I, in fact, think some of these things are ritualistic. I mean, there's no good logical explanation for when they know these things have occurred before, they don't do anything to prevent them from occurring again. Also, by the way, let me tell you, P. Diddy was sued. Numerous people sued him, but they settled, or he settled, for an undisclosed amount. They never released how much money he settled for, but he didn't make the settlement until 2000. Guess what? That's 9 years after the event, because the event happened in 1991, and he didn't settle with them and pay out the money until 2000, 9 years later. So you got 9 people dead, and then you got 9 years later. All right. So last Friday night in Houston, crowds perhaps much larger than the venue was designed to hold surged toward a stage as the main event, popular rapper Travis Scott took to the stage. Now, as people near the front were crushed, 8 people died and many more were injured. But Travis kept performing despite chants from the crowd of those near the tragedy to stop the show. That sounds almost word for word like what happened 30 years ago. Now, you mean to tell me in 30 years they couldn't get this together? You mean in 30 years they couldn't figure out a way to keep these events from happening like this, these tragedies, from people dying at concerts? Please make that make sense. So they go on to say what happened 30 years ago at the old Salt Palace Arena in downtown Salt Lake City, as 3 people died at an AC/DC concert. Now, back then, the crush started as soon as the band burst into its iconic opening song, Thunderstruck. People near the fallen began calling for the band to stop. But the music just kept going. They didn't demonize them, though. They didn't go in on AC/DC. They didn't say, oh, well, they just kept going. They didn't stop. They didn't pay attention. Let me tell you something. Every last one of these artists who have been at concerts performing when these things happened, none of them stopped. They all kept going. And you think they didn't know people were dead or injured? So they say, some said it went on for 15 minutes. Others said it was more like 45 minutes. The band apparently seemed to have had no idea of what was going on. Now, after the music stopped and the casualties were removed, the band resumed playing. Now, the website ultimateclassicrock.com said officials worried that even more people would suffer if the concert ended and the concert goers became angry. So they just kept on going. I'm sorry, maybe it's just me, but I scarcely think I'd be able to perform on a stage when I know people have died in the crowd that came to see my performance. But let me continue. Friday night, the New York Times reported that Houston Police Chief Troy Finner wanted Travis Scott to continue because he worried about riots. Different place, different time, and same script. This is all so stupid. Now, that was not an irrational police response, by the way. In 1992, when a concert headlining Metallica and Guns N' Roses, did Geraldo report on those events and say that they were violence and that they were robbing the dead? That's another thing. Who told Geraldo that the people at the concert at City College were robbing the dead? Who said that? I never read that in one report. I never saw any interviews of witnesses ever suggesting anything. That's what Geraldo said. Geraldo is a racist piece of shite. Let's not forget he's the same one who justified the murdering of Trayvon Martin when he said he shouldn't have been wearing a hoodie. So you mean someone should kill you because you're walking down the street at night with a hoodie on when it's raining, mind you? I wear hoodies when it's raining. So make that make sense. But let me continue. So in 1992, when a concert headlining Metallica and Guns N' Roses was cut short in Montreal after a pyrotechnic accident, a riot ensued. Police ended up chasing people through the streets. Now, as I followed coverage of last week's tragedy, I realized the Salt Lake deaths have been largely forgotten. So too, its lessons. 30 years later, it's just a footnote in a line of tragedies that seem to begin with the Who concert that happened in Cincinnati in 1979 that left 11 people dead. Now, they didn't even give up as much coverage for that when even more people died. And that goes through Montreal, an ill-fated repeat of Woodstock in 1999, several people injured, and a Pearl Jam concert in Denmark in 2000 with 8 people dead. Are y'all paying attention? How come there's a lot of times there's 8 people dead? Let me continue. Among others, all involve crowd surges. And this type of tragedy, at least, history seems incapable of not repeating itself. Now, the person writing this article says they were a reporter at the time assigned to a team covering that long ago AC/DC tragedy. A few weeks after it occurred, he says, I fielded an anonymous tip from someone with the knowledge of the Salt Lake City ordinances. He told me that the city had outlawed so-called festival seating after the Who tragedy, and yet the practice still continued. A fact I later confirmed. Now, with the festival seating, concert goers may buy tickets, allowing them to roam freely on the main floor of the arena. If the crowd isn't controlled or if strategic barriers aren't in place, this can lead to dangerous surges, with people at the rear surging and pushing toward the stage. Why did Travis Scott have that thing up that said, meet you on the other side? Let me continue. I'm just curious. Now, the old Salt Lake Palace had a concert capacity of just under 14,000 and about 4,500 floor or festival seating tickets were sold that night. Now, as the book, Adolescents and Their Music, edited by Jonathan S. Epstein, puts it, as a Salt Palace security guard reported that someone just took a wrong turn and caused everyone to topple. Crowd behavior is no mystery. It's been studied and researched. In a paper most recently revised in 2002, retired researcher John Fruin wrote that crowds of about 7 people per square meter become almost a fluid mass. It is difficult to describe the psychological pressures within crowds at the maximum density. When crowd density equals the planned area of human body, individual control is then lost. And as one becomes an involuntary part of the mass, tragedy can occur. People at the rear are unaware of how people at the front are being crushed. So they keep pushing forward, a desired goal. If someone falls, others are forced to fall on top of them. I have vivid memories of covering the Salt Lake disaster, and it was no fun. 2 of the victims were only 14 years old. The other, a BYU student, was 19. One died that night. The others lingered a while. It was an unnecessary tragedy, and those 3 should be middle-aged right now. Some people blame a music culture that encourages irresponsible behavior. There is some truth to that. Crowds at such venues don't respond to authority the same crowd or the same as do crowds at a symphony. But trying to change this culture is a fool's errand. The only solution is to change how such crowds are controlled and how they are seated. That's absolutely the thing they should do. But I'm just curious as to why they haven't done this in 3 decades. Why these things continue to happen 30 years later. That just doesn't make any sense to me. Now, the people in charge shouldn't have to learn this lesson again and again at the expense of lost lives. Cities rethink festival seating. An LA Times headline said this after the Salt Lake tragedy, but it sounds almost like a taunt today because clearly they haven't rethought the seating nor the security. So that's all crazy. Now, let's talk about this Who concert. Let's talk about this Who concert. Let me pull this up. Okay, so the Who concert stampede that left 11 dead in Cincinnati 40 years ago. So correction, this hasn't been going on for the last 30 years. This happened actually 40 years ago, which I find very crazy. Absolutely crazy. Everyone, please get the likes up. Please like and share. Please subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so. And don't forget to follow the Queen on Instagram. AstroWorld brings memories of the Who concert stampede that left 11 people dead 40 years ago. So in Cincinnati, 11 people were killed and 8 seriously injured at Riverfront Coliseum in a night of a human stampede through the arena's doors before the start of the Who's rock group concert. Now, the Hamilton County Coroner's Office said the dead included 7 males and 4 females. A coroner spokesperson said the ages of the victims range from 18 to the early 20s. A team of clergymen accompanied parents of the victims through the Hamilton County morgue late that night. Identity of the victims were released the same day. They say the kids kept breaking the gate and more. I just couldn't stop them. They rushed the gate. Mark Schroner, a general manager of the Cincinnati Ticketron, would not disclose how many tickets were sold for the events, adding those figures would have to come from Coliseum officials. He says, we weren't over capacity or anything like that. Now, the Coliseum officials would not comment on which doors were opened and when. Concert promoters, Electric Factory Concerts, based in Philadelphia, declined to comment. A spokesman for the Who said the group had a booking in Buffalo that day. Police officer David Crayo said the rush occurred between 7:30 to 8 o'clock p.m. Seats at the concert were both reserved and opened, according to police and concert goers. The crowd began growing at 3 p.m., said police, nearly 4 hours before the gates were opened. The Coliseum held 18,000 people for concert events. Now, they say the crowd must have jammed the people up so tightly in front that they just passed out. They didn't even fall down. They must have just been jammed up so tight that they couldn't get any air and they just simply died. Can you imagine being crushed like that, like sardines in a can? That is absolutely so sad. Now, Cincinnati Safety Director Richard Castellini, who responded to the Coliseum, said apparently there was such a large swell in the crowd that there were some young people who got caught up in the swell and were completely suffocated or got trampled. Castellini said he considered canceling the concert because he thought the problem was inside as well as outside the Coliseum. However, he decided against that when he learned the problem was on the inside. Concert goers inside apparently were unaware of the tragedy that had unfolded just outside the main gates, where the entrance was strewn with broken glass, hats, gloves, coats, and beer cans, you name it. The doors were located on the west side of the Coliseum on the plaza level. Now, one witness named Issy Diacosto, a Dayton, Ohio nurse, said for some odd reason, people were compressed completely near the Coliseum doors. Some made it and some didn't. Several died within 2 or 3 minutes. The whole occurrence took no more than 40 minutes. It's a real sad way to go. I'm sure it is. So anyway, I'm going to show I'm going to show the video footage of the I'm going to show the video footage of the people related to the victims at the Who concert, because they put up a memorial. I believe it was in 2000. I want to say it was in 2016. Everyone get the likes up. Please like and share if you haven't done so already. Here we go. Onika says, I think you did my, oh, okay, you're talking to Dan. Children shouldn't have been at a concert. Artist show well known for raging in the first place. I mean, I don't know why anyone would take kids to those type of concerts anyway. I really don't. Wokeman says, a riot at a Sly and Family Stone concert in 1970 was started by hippies, so that squashes their hip-hop theory. Absolutely. These things have really started with rock concerts and heavy metal, right? But they want to act like it's the rap music, or Geraldo at least wants to act like that's what the problem is. Please.
Since the Who concert tragedy in Cincinnati, the British rock band was in town to perform a concert at US Bank Arena, then Riverfront Coliseum, on this night in 1979. But 11 people were killed before it even began when a stampede of people at the doors tried to get inside. Now a permanent memorial for those who died is outside the arena. And Local 12's Angela Ingram shows us how they will remember tonight.
Last year, just outside of US Bank Arena, a memorial went up in honor of the people who lost their lives in the tragedy. And 37 years later, their family members say this is still extremely painful for them. With each year, the pain of the tragedy gets easier to deal with, but it never truly goes away. Casey Ladd lights a candle in his mother's memory and for the other victims who died that night. Casey was only 2 years old.
Sad. Never knew her. Just, like you said, just stories about like my dad, people that did know her. They told me she was a great woman. Loved my sister, myself very much.
Casey's father had been at the concert with his wife and had to raise 2 children who barely knew their mother. He remembers what it was like that night he almost died, like the 11 victims.
My wife, they brought her out on a stretcher and they tried to revive her, and it's too late. It was all suffocation down there. I always called myself damn near number 12, and but it was it's probably about the closest to death I ever want to come.
Last year, the city acknowledged the families and dedicated this marker outside of US Bank Arena. Survivors say it's important that people see this so that history doesn't repeat itself.
I think it's a terrible tragedy when people lose children, and we lost 11 bright shining lights that night, and they've never been, as far as we're concerned, properly remembered. And we wanted Cincinnati to acknowledge and remember our fallen.
Survivors who lost a loved one want the names and faces here never to be forgotten.
I'm kind of glad that, there things came out of it, you know what I mean, to prevent, tragedies like this from happening again.
It's 37 years now, and you think you'd handle it better. It just never goes away.
The Cincinnati USA Heritage Foundation helped pay for the memorial, as well as some private donors. And people who lost their loved ones say now at least they can come back to a place every year and talk to other people who know what they're going through. At US Bank Arena, Angela Ingram, Local 12 News.
Well, so you heard that right. So they say that they put up a memorial for those people. And like I said, the way they broadcast the news coverage about that incident was far different than the way they broadcast the news coverage about Travis Scott. Y'all right? Pay attention. Hold on just a moment, people. I'm trying to see something really quick. Everyone, please get the likes up. Please like and share. Okay, and so that Who tragedy, I saw someone ask, when did that happen? That happened December 3rd of 1979. Okay, and so like I said, that happened prior to the incident with Diddy, but I just found it interesting that Geraldo was acting as though when he was doing his interview with those people, he was acting like that's the first time he ever heard of such a thing. and using words like violent, and then them calling Diddy a fool on the headlines and all of that. So this is the whole thing I was talking about the other night when I was reporting on the AstroWorld concert, and some fool in the comment section was trolling or whatever, or just being disagreeable, I don't know, whatever, but they were saying, oh, it doesn't have anything to do with race, and you're defending Travis Scott. First of all, I'm not defending Travis Scott. I don't even like Travis Scott. I don't listen to his music. I can care less about him. My whole point is, when I see a racial disparity, or when I see a black person accused of something and a white person accused of the same thing, and the white person doesn't seem to get the same treatment, or they're not saying the same, using the same talking points to describe what the white person did, which is just the same as what the black person did, I have a problem with that. So I'm going to address it. And that doesn't have anything to do with me defending the person themselves. Okay? I'm bringing up racial disparities. That's what I'm talking about when I say those things. So I just found it interesting, like I said. Geraldo had nothing to say. He didn't have all of that smoke, none of those talking points. He didn't use words like violence, accuse people of robbing the dead. And still, like I said, I want to know where he got that from, because none of the witnesses that I heard or saw interviewed ever said anything about people robbing the dead. Here's the thing. If there's a whole tragic event where people are being stampeded and crushed and all of that, and there's a wave of people surging and they're locked. These people were literally locked inside of City College. The doors were locked. There was one door open. People were in the staircase, right? In the stairwells. My thing is, Geraldo, how did people have time to rob the dead? How could they even find the dead? I mean, there were people trampled all over everywhere. You mean to tell me somebody took the time out to try to go through someone's pockets? Through this crowd that's surging, and there's already people dead from it. So some fools are going to sit there and try to go through people's pockets. Like, that makes no sense to me. And like I said, that's just something he himself put out there to further make it seem so, graphic and so violent. And then here's the question. When he's asking, do black children behave the same in a crowd as white children? I would like to ask him, has he not seen any of the footage of the white students, young adults, whatever you want to call them, who get violent, turn over cars, light fires, and do all this foolishness when their team loses a game? Even when they report these things in the media, the lamestream propagandist machine, they say, oh, partygoers went awry. They'll say overzealous fans, acted crazy. But when it's black people, they'll use words like thugs, rioting, looting, animals. These are the things they've actually said. I've heard it myself. I've seen the footage. But they don't use that type of terminology when they're speaking about white people doing some of the exact same things. Vince I Am says, did he have a mustache back then, as it looks like? Okay, Vince, I'm not even going to read that. Cut it out. Brother Sly said, white folks riot when their sports teams win too. Yes, when they win or when they lose. They absolutely do. And nobody seems to really, want to call it for what it is. So it's just crazy. Hold on. Everyone, please get those likes up. Hold on, people. Let me see if I can find this really quick. Here we go. I'm about to show you all for yourselves.
Welcome to finding anything on any app TV. Welcome to Google TV.
Something dear to every sports fan's heart is when fans riot after they win or when they lose. Well, here's the winning side with UConn. Roll that and we'll discuss. So that's the maybe okay, better side than you're going to see with Arizona.
Yeah, that was
pull up those pictures if we can. That was the moderate
spirited.
way.
That's all right.
That was. Do you know what this is?
No idea.
It's the Yukon bench celebration when they hit a three.
Oh, was that right?
Yeah.
Oh, I,
So they were
I
doing
figured it was something related to the basketball team.
Yeah,
Right.
I think so.
That was nice. That was good. Bravo.
However, in Arizona, fans rioted when they lost to Wisconsin. We have a few pictures, if we could pull those up very quickly. So here are obviously all the students on the outside. Surrounding the police officers, 15 people were arrested. Only one person was thrown in jail.
Look at those girls rioting by taking a selfie.
Can we go back to that for a second?
What I mean, oh my God, they should arrest those girls. Look at that rioting. That's ridiculous. Put them right in prison. Throw away the key. What is that? What is that?
I don't know. It's one of the pictures we found.
So yes, you're absolutely right. They do riot when they win or lose. But my whole thing is they don't talk about it the same way. That's what they don't do. Okay? That's what they don't do. And so, like I said, hold on. Now I got to show you all this. I have to show you all this. Everyone, please get the likes up. Please like and share. Let me pull this up real quick. Okay, here we go. Shawana says, who in here remembers when they used to dive into the crowds and do all the foolishness on MTV summer shows? Yes, I remember that. And it was a bunch of foolishness. Absolutely. But that was okay. That was okay as far as they were concerned. Now, I'm sorry. This is all, they were doing all of that when they were celebrating a win. Up there, breaking things. You see that guy climb up there with that big stick, breaking the street lights, not caring who it falls on in the crowd. This is the things that they do. But I'm saying, Geraldo wants to act like, you know, oh, these black kids, they act so different. Oh, it's so violent or whatever. That's just all so crazy. LaMarcus says, Queen, look up Viking chant. Okay, beloved. I mean, this is so crazy. But at the end of the day, these are all tragic events. And the questions that everyone should be asking themselves are, why do these things keep happening? That's what I'd like to know. I mean, if this was happening 40 plus years ago and even before then, you know, my thing is, how come they haven't set anything in place so they don't continue to occur? And if these things have occurred so many times, why do parents continuously allow small children like 9 and 10 years old to attend these things? That's really crazy to me. That just absolutely makes no sense. Okay, so Vince, we're about to look at this. Vince wanted me to look up the Viking chants. I'm going to share my screen. I've never seen this before. I have no clue what it is. We're going to find out. They say that was 10,000 fans. I'm sorry, but it looked like more than 10,000 to me. That was crazy. And also, it's amazing how they all were doing it in such, you know, synchronicity, such unison, right? Anyway, let me tell y'all something. All of the black folk who foolishly went out there and voted to get Sloppy Joe Jim Crow over the threshold of victory along with Kabami 2.0, all of y'all should get together and do that same chant, and at the same time you're doing it, scream, "Let's go, Brandon." That's what y'all should be doing. Let's go, Brandon. Where the reparations at? All right, please. So dark-skinned brother says, the Bible is playing out right before our faces, Queen, my beautiful sister. I already know you see it, and everyone in the chat do as well. I don't know why y'all laughing. I was serious. We just got to sit back, my queen. Absolutely, beloved. Absolutely. Amazing Tribe says, I issued giant uppercuts. Hold on. I issued giant uppercuts, those crowd surfing and pushing to get to the front row where I'd have actual front row seats. Indeed, I'll power slam fools. Mark says, I wish we had this spirit going against the government. Okay? That'll have that same energy for Biden and those mandates, right? Oh my goodness. So anyway, there you have it, people. So I'm going to conclude this broadcast, but I just wanted you all to see that these events have occurred time and time again, and they will continue to occur until somebody makes a move to do something about it. I don't think this was the last time we'll see a tragic event like that, but hopefully this will be the last time parents allow their children, elementary age children, to go to something like that. They had no business being there in the first place. And at the end of the day, I don't feel that they should even want their children listening to some of the lyrics that many of these artists are even spewing. Okay? So that's all crazy. So with that all being said, I thank you all for tuning in. Make sure you like and share the video. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. Be sure to click the notification bell and click the word all. Enjoy the rest of your Friday nights. And I hope to see you all in the next chats. Peace.